So over to you, Councillor Feng.
Dear Mr. Suhail Shahirya, dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Feng Jialiang. I'm counselor from Chinese Embassy. Today, two of my colleagues also joined the conversation. They are Mr. Liu Yangjun, First Secretary, Mr. Lu Xin, Attaché. We're very glad to introduce the Global Security Initiative, GSI. Let me start by thanking UNA Harpenden and Mr. Suhail Shahirya for the opportunity that we can share our views and knowledge on this topic. My introduction will consist of 4 parts. The first one is about the background. In the world today, the trends of turbulence, transformation are evolving, and deficits in development and security are looming large. The world today is facing unprecedented risk of division. Some countries clinging to the outdated mindset of Cold War confrontation are obsessed with building exclusive small circles and blocs. They pursue unilateralism in the name of multilateralism, use double standards while tooting their own rules, and practice hegemony under the guise of democracy. These acts have seriously undermined the international security order and aggravated the deficit in global security governance. At this moment critical to world peace and development, President Xi Jinping proposed for the first time GSI at the Boao Forum for Asia Annual Conference 2022. GSI gives explicit answers to questions of our time, such as what security concept the world needs and how countries can achieve common security. It fully demonstrates China's concerns for world peace and development and our internationalist vision. The significance of GSI is as follows. GSI was proposed to meet the pressing need of the international community to maintain world peace and prevent conflicts and wars, to meet the common aspiration of all countries to uphold multilateralism and international solidarity, to meet the shared desire of all peoples for working together to overcome difficulties and build a better world beyond the pandemic. So this is my first part about background. Second is about the content of this initiative. As you may already know, the GSI is underpinned by 6 commitments. All have their own logic system. Namely, stay committed to the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. This serves as a guiding principle for maintaining world peace and tranquility. Today, in a world faced with the combined impacts of the pandemic and the major changes both unseen in a century and the shadow for war or conflict, the significance of this new security vision is all the more evident. It will drive deep into people's hearts the idea of peace and cooperation, one about beating swords into plowshares and pursuing security for all. It will demonstrate the great potential for the new type of security that features dialogue, partnership, and win-win instead of confrontation, alliance, and zero-sum approach. Staying committed to respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries. This is the basic prerequisite for maintaining world peace and tranquility. The principle of sovereignty is the cornerstone for norms governing international relations and contemporary times. All countries, big or small, strong, weak, rich or poor, are equal partners, equal members of the international security. Their internal affairs brook no external interference. Their sovereignty and dignity must be respected, and their rights to independently choose their own system, social system, and development path must be upheld. Staying committed to abiding by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. This is a fundamental requirement for maintaining world peace. The purposes and principles of the UN Charter are the result of deep soul searching by people around the world on the bitter lessons of the two world wars. They embody humanity's institutional design for achieving collective security and lasting peace. As President Xi Jinping noted, the various confrontation injustice in the world today do not occur because the purpose and principles of the UN Charter are outdated, but because they are not effectively implemented. We must act on true multilateralism, firmly reject unilateralism and all forms of fake multilateralism, firmly uphold the basic norms of international relations based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. Staying committed to taking the legitimate security concerns of all countries seriously. This is an important principle for maintaining world peace. Humanity is an indivisible security community. Security of one country should not come at the expense of that of others. And security of a region cannot be ensured by strengthening or even expanding military blocs. An enduring solution to global security challenge lies in upholding the principle of indivisible security, taking each other's legitimate security concerns seriously, and building a balanced, effective, and sustainable security architecture with a view to universal and common security. Staying committed to peacefully resolving differences and disputes between countries through dialogue and consultation. This is the only path for maintaining world peace. International practices have demonstrated fully that neither war nor sanction is a fundamental solution to disputes, and that dialogue and consultation are the most effective ways to resolve differences. The international community should unequivocally support all efforts conducive to peaceful settlement of crisis, oppose attempts by any force to fan the flames or to obstruct and scupper peace talks. All parties should work in concert to diffuse tension, restore stability, promote peace, and encourage conflicting parties to engage in dialogue and keep the dialogue going so as to build trust, settle disputes, and promote security through dialogue. Staying committed to maintaining security in both traditional and non-traditional domains. This is an integral part of the cause of maintaining world peace. Security is becoming more interconnected, transnational, and diverse. It thus necessitates continual creative thinking, as well as keeping security cooperation in pace with the times. Facing complex international security threats, such as regional disputes, terrorism, climate change, and those related to cybersecurity and biosecurity, no country can stay unaffected or become a lone island. Only through working together to tide over the difficulties can countries turn pressure into driving forces and crises into opportunities. So these about 6 commitments are interlinked and mutually reinforcing, including macro thinking of top-level design, as well as methods and pathways for addressing practical issues. This is my second part introduction. And the third part is about practice. The GSI take roots in new China's independent foreign policy piece and the practice of this policy. It is inspired by the diplomatic tradition and the wisdom with the unique Chinese characteristics. Over the years, as a responsible major country, China has held high the banner of peace, development, cooperation for win-win results, and made active contributions to upholding global peace and security. China keeps its conviction about peaceful development and remains committed builder of world peace. Since the founding of New China, the country has pursued an independent foreign policy of peace and adhered to the path of peaceful development. It never started war, never occupied 1 inch of foreign land, never engaged in proxy wars, and never participated in or organized any military bloc. Among the major countries, China has the best peace and security record. At present, China remains the only country in the world that undertakes to follow a path of peaceful development in its constitution and the only one among the 5 nuclear weapon states that has pledged no first use of nuclear weapons. No matter how developed China becomes, it will never seek hegemony, expansion, or severe influence, nor will it engage in arms race. China will always be a strong pillar for world peace and tranquility. As a responsible country, China remains a firm defender of the international order. I'll give you some examples. China, the first founding member of the United Nations to sign on the UN Charter, it firmly upholds the purpose and principles of the UN Charter and advocates respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity of all countries. China has dispatched the most peacekeepers among the permanent members of the UN Security Council and is the second largest contributor to UN peacekeeping budget. China has taken an active part in international arms control, disarmament, and non-proliferation processes. It has signed accede to more than 20 multilateral arms control, disarmament, and non-proliferation treaties. China has announced its carbon peaking and carbon neutrality goals and plays part in tackling climate change. It has launched the global initiative on data security as a proposed solution to the global digital governance. China remains a steadfast mediator of hotspot issue. China firmly stands on the side of peaceful dialogue, equity and justice, and actively explores solutions with the Chinese characteristics to hotspot issues. On Ukraine, China takes an objective and fair stance on the basis of the merits and demerits of the issue, and vigorously advise peace and encourage talks. This has been highly recognized by the international community, particularly the vast number of developing countries. On the Middle East, China has put forward proposals on resolving the Palestinian question and an initiative on promoting peace and stability in the Middle East. It supports the countries, peoples in the Middle East in addressing regional security issues through solidarity and coordination, and support their independent exploration for development paths of their own. On the Iranian nuclear issue, China actually promotes the negotiation to resume compliance with the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and about the international nuclear non-proliferation regime. On the Korean Peninsula issue, nuclear issue, China remains committed to making synchronized process in the establishment of permanent peace mechanism and the denuclearization of the peninsula. I believe that the legitimate concerns of all parties should be addressed in a balanced manner. On Afghanistan, China has taken the initiative to carry out international coordination and provide humanitarian assistance, playing a constructive role for the smooth transition of the situation in Afghanistan. So this is my third part, what China's practice in our policy. And the last part is about action, which means proposing GSI is just at the start. The point is how to deliver it. China stands ready to work with the international community to implement this initiative. To do that, we need to firmly uphold the authority and stature of the UN and jointly practice true multilateralism. We must reject attempt to undermine the international order in the name of preserving so-called rules and put the world under the shadow of new Cold War. We need to stick to the overall direction of promoting talks for peace and jointly explore political solutions on hotspot issues. We must uphold justice, encourage dialogue, and act as anchors of peace instead of fire bellows in the likelihood of conflicts. We need to take a holistic approach to traditional and non-traditional security threats and jointly improve the global security governance system. We must follow the principle of extensive consultation, jointly contribution, and share benefits in global governance so as to prevent resolve security dilemmas. We need to strike a balance between development and security and jointly contribute to robust recovery of the world economy. We need to stay committed to building an open world economy and make globalization more open, inclusive, balanced, and beneficial for all. We need to place development high on the global macro policy agenda, accelerate the implementation of the UN 2030 agenda to enhance sustainable security. We need to seek to build a new regional security architecture and jointly protect peace and stability in Asia. We must firmly oppose any attempt to divide the region and wage a new Cold War through the so-called Indo-Pacific strategy. I reject the attempt to piece together an Asia-Pacific version of NATO through military alliance. In conclusion, GSI contributes China's wisdom to the efforts of mankind in tackling peace deficit and offers China's solution to addressing international security challenges. China will remain a defender of world peace, a contributor to global development, and an upholder of international order. It will always be a staunch force for world peace and common development. I just want to reiterate 2 points. Lastly, first one, we Chinese people have the confidence, determination, and ability to manage our country well. We firmly oppose any slander or interference in China's internal affairs. Meanwhile, on the basis of equality and mutual respect, China is ready to engage all other parties in dialogue and cooperation to expand common understanding, reduce differences, promote mutual learning, seek progress together for the greater benefit of people across the world. Thank you. That's all my introduction at the first part. Now we're glad to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Feng. Thank you very much. That's a lot of information in a short period of time. We have a few questions on the chat function, but before that, we did submit a number of questions which I passed to you. Do you want to cover them one by one, or shall I repeat them?
Maybe we can one by one. And some of the questions I'll ask my colleagues to join in for this conversation. Sure. And thank you.
Okay. Sorry, who are your colleagues, please? Would you like to introduce them?
I think that they are online.
Right. Okay. So the first question that we had was, what is the Chinese government's view of the US-NATO stance against Russia in relation to the Ukraine crisis?
Yes, on the Ukraine crisis, I think that I will answer that question because as we know that the Ukraine crisis has been an international hotspot, that's a focal point of the international landscape. And in our view that China, as I illustrated in my opening remarks, that we think that the Ukraine crisis sounds the alarm for everyone in the world. The peace and development still face severe challenges. And so we call all parties concerned to shoulder their responsibility earnestly and make joint efforts to promote peaceful settlement. So basically our position has several parts. The first one is we must keep for peace talks, to urging the party to engage in peace talks, because this is the only feasible way to avoid escalation tension. All parties should continue to create conditions and environment for the negotiation between Russia and Ukraine, and encourage all the relevant parties to return to the negotiating table as soon as possible. Second one, we must aim to building lasting peace in Europe and the Eurasian continent. We should support Europe's leading role, encourage the dialogue between Europe, Russia, and the United States and NATO, and promote the building of balanced, effective, and sustainable European security framework. And another point is that we are against to use the Ukraine crisis as pretext to undermine the legitimate development rights and interests of other countries. Because as we know that these sanctions and also this crisis has a very big spillover effect globally on the global energy, finance, food. So all those areas, other countries have been affected. So we hope that we need to have to avoid this crisis to have spillover effects and expense of other countries and peoples. So that's why that I think we propose the Global Security Initiative, and all the essence of the security initiative have been, there will be answers for this Ukraine crisis. And the last point I want to say, China has been playing our part, responsible role in this process. We've been working with all other countries and coordinating in this process, and to promote these talks, all other countries. I think that you will notice that our leaders, our officials have been working with other countries, with the European counterpart, with Russia. And also recently, our president has a conversation, phone call with President Joe Biden, that they also discuss Ukraine crisis. We've been to provide our positions to the United States and how we look at this crisis. So China is doing our part and will continue to play a constructive role in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. The next part of that question is, what is the Chinese government's view of the US sanctions against Russia and China?
Sorry, could you repeat that again? Thank you.
What is the government's view of the sanctions against Russia and China?
In our basic position that we don't believe that sanction will be effective and is not a good way to resolve disputes and conflicts. And we think that dialogue and consultation is the best way forward. Because sanctions, as I mentioned, sanctions that have some spillover effects that on global economic regime, and also that people's livelihoods around the world. And only through dialogue and consultation that we can find common ground to see that how can resolve this problem. And also we strongly against this unilateral sanctions, which has no authorization of the United Nations. It's a unilateral approach, and this unilateral approach will not solve the problem either. It's because we believe that all countries, big or small, strong, weak, that we are all equal members of this community, that people have to come together to find ways to resolve the differences.
Thank you. The final part of that question is, what is the Chinese government's view of the US NATO stances in the Asia-Pacific region, including Taiwan? I think you mentioned it earlier. And a similar question is, why is China opposed to the visit of Pelosi to Taiwan?
Could you repeat the last sentence? I'm sorry. The
last part is, why is China opposed to the visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan?
In Asia, as I think I mentioned a little bit about Asia. Asia is, through the past several decades, is an anchor for world peace and a powerhouse for global growth. So on Asia and Asia region, it needs a new security architecture compatible with its economic foundation. So we believe that we need to build a model for security for Asia featuring mutual respect, openness, and integration, that it take into the account of the diversity of Asian countries. For instance, because in Asia, we know that a country have different stages, social system, cultural values, so accommodates aspirations and interests of parties. So we strongly oppose any attempt to divide the region and wage a new Cold War through the so-called Indo-Pacific strategy. Because we reject the attempt to piece together Asia-Pacific version NATO through military alliance. We must, because I know that some people argue that in Europe, because the Ukraine crisis, Europe security and stability is facing grave challenge. And we don't want Asia to have the similar situation that there will be some of the security challenges erupted. And we must firmly have ASEAN centrality in the regional architecture and advocate 5 principles, peaceful coexistence, and deepen regional and sub-regional security cooperation, and find a path for Asia to ensure security for all, by all, and of all. On Taiwan, I think that I will reiterate our position on Taiwan, because Taiwan is a core interest. Taiwan issue is a core interest of China, and Taiwan is an alienable part of China. And I would say that the Chinese government is striving for the prospect of peaceful reunification with utmost sincerity and efforts. Having said that, China also firmly safeguards our nation's security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. We will never let anyone to separate Taiwan from China in any way. And for all those external forces want to play the Taiwan card, I will say that China is very firm and resolute in our position to defend our sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity. And we strongly urge the United States to avoid sending any wrong messages to the so-called Taiwan independent forces to keep the promise of the US President Biden made on the Taiwan, because US reaffirmed that they stick to the one China policy. And this, we hope that the US will take actions according to their words. So on this issue, I think that China is very firm, very clear, and consistent on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. We have quite a few questions coming through the chat function, but we still have our list of questions. If you wouldn't mind keeping your answers brief. So the next question is, do the Chinese government see the Beijing consensus or Chinese model, which have formed the foundation of the political and economic policies of the People's Republic of China since 1976, after Mao Zedong's death, continuing in their present form? To what extent do you see the role of market forces and competition operating within the political one-state framework?
On this question, I will ask my colleagues, First Secretary Liu Yangjun to answer.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to answer this.
You can take your mask and answer the question.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's my pleasure to answer this question. You know, in the 1970s, China began to reform and open up and take the path of the socialism with the Chinese characteristics. The path is, you know, under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, take economic development as our central task, and also based on the basic national conditions, adhering to the 4 basic principles and reform and opening up, construct a socialist market economy, democratic politics, advanced culture, harmonious society, ecological civilization, promote the all-around development of the people, and you know, gradually achieve common prosperity for everyone, build China into a great modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful. So, you know, the advantages of the path, theory, system, and culture of socialism with the Chinese characteristics have been continuously promoted, developed, and integrated in the process of reform and the great practical activities of socialism with the Chinese characteristics under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, and are the important reasons and internal dynamics for China's historic change and also historic achievements. The path with Chinese characteristics is a path that has been proved correct by practice, is suitable for China's national conditions, and also conforms to the law of human society. With China will coordinate and promote the 5-in-1 overall layout, coordinate the promotion of the 4 comprehensive strategic layout, comprehensively deepening reform and opening up based itself on the new development stage, fully accurately and comprehensively implement the new developmental concept and build a new development pattern, promote high quality development, promote scientific and technological self-reliance and self-improvement, ensure that people are the master of the country, adhere the rule of law, adhere to the socialist core value system, the guarantee and the development, improvement of people's livelihood in the process of development, adhere to the harmonious coexistence of man and nature, jointly promote the prosperity of the people and the country and beautiful country. Socialism with Chinese characteristics will continue to demonstrate its great superiority and strong vitality. Regarding the role of the market and the competition, we give for play to the market's decisive role in allocating resources, and better playing the role of the government is an important experience for China to do a good job of economic work in the new era. Under the guidance of national policies, the market can play a decisive role in allocating resources so that the development can be full of innovative vitality and various production factors can be brought into full play. Fairness and justice are the guarantee of market vitality and social creativity, and also a measure of market participants' certification with policies. The government is the guardian of fair and just competition. In recent years, China has vigorously promoted reform, which has stimulated market vitality and social creativity. And China's business environment has been effectively improved. In the future, no matter how the international situation changes, China will unwaveringly do its own thing, continue to strengthen its economic foundation, enhance its scientific and technological innovation capabilities, intensify reform efforts, and use for reform measures and actual results to improve the market-oriented business environment, legislation, and internationalization. China will adhere to multilateralism, actively set higher standards for international economic and trade rules, and promote in-depth reforms and highly quality development with high level opening up. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, what have been the successes of China's Belt and Road initiatives? What are the objectives yet to be achieved? And how do they align with GSI?
This question I'll ask my colleagues, Mr. Lu Xin, attaché. He will answer this question.
Okay, can your colleague also introduce himself first, please?
Okay, I'm really great to be here today. My name is Lu Xin, and I'm actually, as the councillor has introduced, I'm an attaché at the embassy here, and I work at the policy department. So I'm very glad to be here today to answer this question. This is a very great question about the Belt and Road Initiative, which is like debated for a lot here in the UK. And for the Belt and Road Initiative, I think if you want to discuss this initiative, you have to understand which principles it is following. Actually, the principles that the Belt and Road Initiative follows is that there is a principle of extensive consultation, and there is a principle of joint contribution, and there is a principle of shared benefits. These are three most important principles of this initiative. And carrying out this initiative, China follows all those three principles and trying to deliver tangible benefits to partner countries and its peoples. For example, recently, if you read the news, you may find that there is a hydropower station in Pakistan, and there is a railway project in Indonesia, and there is already railway built in Africa. All those projects have provided very tangible benefits to the local people and helps them to grow their economy and helps them to grow their green economy, because like we have solar powers in Africa, we have solar power panels in South Pacific countries, and these all have contributed to their sustainable growth. And also there's one thing I think, looking to the future, there's one thing you need to know that globally that there are multiple studies showing that there is a huge gap of infrastructure investments, which like by 2040, there can be a gap of $100 trillion. That's huge, right? And that requires people, that requires countries across the world to make more investment to infrastructure so as to bring our economy and so as to realize carbon neutrality by 2040 of this century. And I just want to say that China is very glad that we have the BRI. We can contribute a part of our contribution to this gap and to help other countries to grow their infrastructure. This is very important. And there is also a World Bank study. I don't know whether our audience have seen that already. Basically, the study says that the BRI could contribute a lot globally. In this study, it says that if all BRI transport infrastructure projects are carried out by 2030, the BRI will generate 1.6 trillion of revenues for the world each year, or 1.3% of global GDP. Actually, up to 90% of these revenues will go to partner countries, and the upper middle and low income corridor economies are expected to benefit the most. And also according to this study, from 2015 to 2030, BRI could potentially contribute to lifting 7.6 million people out of extreme poverty and 62 million people out of moderate poverty. That is how I want to introduce the BRI, and I hope I can offer you a different perspective from the media here in the UK. I think we also need to think this more objectively. It's not always what you have been saying on the media. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got one more previous questions to answer before I go to the chat function. If you could keep the answer brief, what is the Chinese government's long-term view of attaining peace with A, India, B, Japan, and C, Australia?
Okay. So firstly, that I think my colleagues been answering two questions. One about how you view our views on the political systems and in China. And another one is about BRI. As my colleagues said, that what we want to do today, it provides our views, our positions, and our perspective. And as you mentioned before, that now that the media here in the UK have some stereotypes about China, that's how they look at China. So we want to provide another perspective from our own, and then maybe this is good for our mutual understanding. Our question about China's relations with India and with other countries. I think that China, India have a very, as you know, that we're all both countries are populous countries in the world. And we have a combined population of over 2.8 billion and account for 1/3 of humanity. So if these two countries kind of achieve stability and prosperity, and live in peace and harmony, global peace and prosperity will have a solid foundation. So we attach importance to these relations with India. Since there are some boundary questions left over from history, China has all along advocates managing differences through equal-footed consultation, actively seeking a fair and equitable settlement, and meanwhile, not letting it affect or interfere with the bigger picture of our bilateral relations. So we hope that India will work with China to uphold the strategic consensus that our two countries achieved, because we will not pose threats, but offer development opportunities to each other and continue to promote mutual trust, avoid misunderstanding or miscalculation, so that we will be partners for mutual success instead of adversaries of mutual attrition. We must make sure that our relations move forward on the right track, bring more benefits to our peoples and make greater contribution to region and the world. On China relations with Japan, this year marked the 50th anniversary of the normalization of China-Japan relations. It provides an important opportunity for the two sides to review history and shape the future together. I have 3 points to offer. Firstly, cherish the original aspiration and keep the bilateral relations on the right track. It is important to truly abide by the principles and spirit of the 4 China-Japan political documents, implement such important common understandings that the two countries should be partners, no threats, and support each other's peaceful development. These are the crucial for the bilateral relations to develop in the direction of peace and friendship. Second, honor commitments and uphold the political foundation of bilateral relations. Major sensitive issues such as history and Taiwan are fundamental to mutual trust between our two countries. If the foundation is shaken, whatever above, it cannot stand. We hope that Japan will honor the series of solemn commitments it has made on these issues to avoid serious disruption to our bilateral relations in the future. Third, embrace the trend of the time and jointly create a brighter prospect of our relations. The world is becoming multipolar one, where unilateralism and hegemonism will be replaced by greater democracy in international relations. The Cold War alliances and geopolitical confrontation have long lost people's support. So this is the inevitable trend of history. We hope that Japan will go along with the trend instead of against it, declined to pull chestnuts out the fire for others and avoid pitting itself against its neighbors. This is a way for Japan to truly see history as a mirror and look ahead in the future and contribute to the share in regional peace and stability and development. Thank you.
Thank you. What about Australia?
China-Australia relations, as we know that previously they faced some challenges. And now that with the new Australian government, and we think that there will be new developments. It has always been our position that China and Australia can achieve sound developments that will serve the common interests of the two peoples, will also be conducive to maintaining peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region. The root cause of difficulties in China-Australia relations in the past few years lies in the fact that the former Australian government insists on regarding China as a rival or even a threat. With a series of irresponsible words and deeds against China, China valued the fact that the new Australian government has reaffirmed its commitment to the position of the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries. And we appreciate very much Australia's adherence to the One China principle. It is our shared responsibility to abide by the UN Charter and the basic norms governing international relations. We hope that Australia will seize the current opportunity, take correct actions, and reshape a correct perceptions of China and reduce negative assets of accumulated positive energy for improving bilateral relations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take some questions from the chat functions. I'll pick this one from Kevin Featherstone. Are there no circumstances in which the world has a moral obligation to intervene in an individual state breaching its sovereignty? Isn't that a UN principle?
On that, I think that on sovereignty and territorial integrity, our position is very clear and consistent. Because we believe that this is the cornerstone of international relations and enshrined in the UN Charter. So we all need to work to uphold these principles, and that in this international landscape, that as long as this principle has been upheld, that we will have bigger, brighter future and prospect for peace and stability in the region around the world. So I think that basically we strongly adhere to this principle of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And for other countries that their own social system, their own development path, it has also been our position that all countries have their own rights to choose this development path. And this is will be decided by its own people.
Okay. Next question from Patricia Rogers. You mentioned that part of the GSI is supporting the self-determination of different countries to choose their own way of governing themselves. Since 1945, the people of Taiwan have chosen to govern themselves and have built a successful democratic country. Not only does China not agree with this, it also makes a condition of giving aid to other countries that the two must not recognize the government of China. So the second part of that question is, China has recognized regions of other countries that chose to become separate countries, such as the Slovak Republic, South Sudan. Are there any circumstances in which China would allow a region of its country choose to secede?
I think that I illustrate in my opening remarks and previous questions that on the question of Taiwan, that the history, according to the history, that Taiwan is an integral part of China, and the reunification of motherlands between mainland and Taiwan is the common aspiration and desire of sons and daughters of 1.4 billion Chinese people. So that is the unstoppable historical trend, that the reunification must be achieved and will be achieved. We have every confidence, determination, and ability to do that. And for other regions, as your colleagues mentioned, members mentioned about other regions, we believe that different regions, different countries have their unique features and histories. And when we judge other regions, other countries, we have to look into the historical context. For instance, I just maybe say a little bit more about Ukraine crisis. And some of the friends and people here in this country, when this crisis broke out, some of the arguments say that you have your own arguments, and some even say that China should have more responsibility on this. Because we believe that this crisis is not it's not broke up in one day. It's a long history from the region, the culture, and all this, and particularly the 5 expansion of the NATO architecture. As I say that the GSI, one of the principles is indivisible security principle. We said you cannot take your own security and expand your own security to make sure your own security at the expense of others' security, which means this security is indivisible, that only all countries' legitimate security concern be addressed, and that will be sustainable balanced, and effective way for this security. Thank you.
Thank you. A question from Nigel Quinton. Whilst I congratulate China on its economic development since I worked there in the 1980s and spent much time praising China's role in leading on renewable energy development, I have some concerns over the pattern of foreign investment in Africa, despite the infrastructure it has provided. Many countries I have visited have initially welcomed Chinese investment, but have subsequently complained that projects have not employed local people or left trained up workforce. Will China consider a better way to integrate development for a more equitable future?
With this question, may I ask my colleagues to Mr. Lu Xin to answer this question?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. As I introduced before on the Belt and Road Initiative, I think, I don't know whether you have maybe pay some notice to some other Chinese projects in the Africa, like there is a railway project which connecting Mombasa and Nairobi. This is a railway built by Chinese companies, and it is currently operated by Chinese and African companies. And on this railway, that there are train drivers and staff on the train. They are actually, now I think most of them are actually local people. So I think it is kind of a process that after Chinese companies, some Chinese companies may find that they lack these experienced people to operate their projects there. So in the early stage of the projects, there might be some Chinese staff there to help them set up the projects. And but with the time going, with everything's been setting up, they will hire more and more local people. And this is sort of things our companies have been trying to do in Africa and actually around the world. There are many BRI investments projects taking the same approach here. And so I think maybe with the time going, you will see more and more local people are hired by Chinese companies. And I think these things will be better and better in the future. And it will not always be the case that there are only like Chinese people hired in the local area. So I think we will give it some time. And I think maybe sometimes you visit there, you are not seeing the very complete case, and maybe we can just take another perspective to see how things goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got two more questions I'd like to ask before we finish about 11:30. From Jenny Clegg. Over 100 nations and international organizations have signed up to China's Global Development Initiative. Will the Global Security Initiative gain a similar amount of support? What might be the difficulties in winning support? For example, will nations hesitate to choose sides?
Thank you for the question. You mentioned about the Global Development Initiative, and this is another topic. But these two initiatives are very strongly linked together because, as I mentioned at the beginning, that there is peace and development and security and development. These two are pressing challenges at the moment worldwide. So that's why that we have this Global Development Initiative to address these issues on the development, particularly on how to dovetail this initiative with the 2030 UN Sustainable Development Agenda. And on this Global Security Initiative, I think that we strongly believe that we'll gain more and more support worldwide. But by gaining support does not mean that for instance, the number, but rather that how we can work together to put into implementation for the real tangible benefits of our stability and security, how we can move the world, how can avoid further conflicts and confrontations, how we can avoid the new Cold War, a tendency, very dangerous tendency to hype up for instance, one country's threats, and then even demonize a country and to play this the scaremongering game that on this the world. So I think that for we China see that we have these solutions, we have this public goods, and we want to put our position known to the outside world, and we can work together and improve together to make common progress for all. And that's it's more practical that we can work together to have security and stability for all.
Thank you. So one last question. It's not a political question. When you're not working as an employee of the embassy, how do you relax and how do you enjoy the being in the UK?
Thank you for this question. And I will say I appreciate very much this today's format, today's occasion, and this opportunity to exchange views. And I'll see that the chat room about that some of your members also have some comments on China, on policies, on Hong Kong, and on others, China relations with other countries. And so I think that for us, for diplomats, our role and responsibility, duty, is to articulate what we think about our policy and how we can make new friends, reach out to all sectors in the UK society. And then, as I say, that from our ambassador to different levels of diplomats, we're all ready and very glad to make friends with all sectors in the UK. And as your organization, I should say that we congratulate your success on the past years for your achievement, and we're willing to work together on all these issues and make our further conversation and improve our mutual understanding. And besides work, we're also humans, so we enjoy that our life here in the UK. The weather is fantastic. The hot weather sometimes is not very good, but we think that we can endure. This year is less rainfall, but we hope that that all the people that will have a good holiday and your members that enjoy your time. And then maybe since that in the future we have more chances to meet in person for a dialogue, and maybe it's also good for continue our conversation and improve our understanding. Maybe this question, may I ask my colleagues to say a few words?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. So, you know, besides of the work, I just, you know, in this very fine weather, sometimes jogging, sometimes go to the go shopping, like that. But you know, most of the time we work in office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just speak a few words. Actually, I'm very glad to be here today to join this event to share my view with all our audience here. And yeah, my final words here is that I think today maybe all of us read our news from like social media and like news app, and the modern technology may make acquiring information very convenient for us. But there is one risk factor, that the algorithm which makes you took this media app, like they are offering all the news you really want to read. They only offer these news you want to read. So this cause that maybe sometimes we have some stereotypes inside our mindset, and that's why I want to say that we need to be objective. We need to take another perspective when we are reading the facts, reading the news around the world. And for the question about my life when I'm not working, I think London is a very great city. You will have great museums, great theaters, and great parks. That's what I enjoyed about London. Before the pandemic, I often go to the British Museum, and I often go to some concerts, which I think is what is amazing about London. Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.
Thank you.
my colleague and I would like to thank you very much for joining today, answering our questions as best as possible, and for taking the time to discuss important security issues with us. Thank you very much, and I will now close the call.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.